Today on the show, we have Andres Soto. He is a sports journalist who has produced for ESPN and he's written for MLB.com, has words for LA Times, and he recently also published a piece on Fernando Valenzuela and his influence. So we're glad to have Andres on the show. Welcome, bro. How you been?
Thank you, man. I've been good. Just happy to be on the show.
The Dodgers are in the World Series, man. So we wanted to dive into that and wanted to speak with you about that. But first off, the Dodgers are in the World Series. Their first game is today, Friday. But my question to you is, how did they get here? Like, what was their journey to get to this place, to the World Series?
It's been an interesting season for sure because it started with signing Shohei Ohtani in December and Yoshinobu Yamamoto. The season really didn't go anywhere near where they expected because they basically limped into the playoffs. They've dealt with injuries pretty much the entire season. Literally, if you look at the injured list, all the pitchers that are hurt right now for the Dodgers would be like an all-star rotation. Would be like the best rotation in the league for any other team. Like it's like Clayton Kershaw, Tyler Glasnow. You can even throw in Shohei Ohtani right there, Gavin Stone, Dustin May. Those are really good pitchers, and they're all injured. Insane. I don't think I've ever seen anything like it in my years as a Dodger fan. But they've had that whole next man up mentality. They've kind of gutted out a lot of wins. The bullpen has been really, really strong. The bullpen really carried them pretty much throughout the whole postseason. It helped turn the tide in Game 4 in San Diego, helped them come back to LA and win that series. And they really kind of pretty much shut down a really good Mets offense as well in this past round. Tommy Edman, who they traded for at the trade deadline, he has been nothing short of amazing. NLCS MVP. Every time he steps up to bat, you have to watch him because he's been their best player this October for sure.
And you mentioned the bullpen. But for those who don't know, could you clarify a little bit what the bullpen is?
Yeah, so the bullpen is the relievers, the guys who aren't starting pitching for the game, but they're called upon when they're needed, either later in the game when the guy is tired or when the starter's in a little bit of trouble. Take him out, be like, hey, like the pressure's on you now. You have to go and get it. So it's really a high leverage job, and they've definitely been built for it this year.
Yeah, if there's one thing about baseball is that it's always like kind of like the unexpected teams who kind of go far, right? And like you never know who's gonna make it like in the World Series, right? So you mentioned the Dodgers going through all these injuries and they were still able to make it. Were there any highlights that stood out for you this postseason for them?
The thing you were talking about like the teams you least expected to make it, the Dodgers. This whole time, they've still really been expected to make it. They finished with the number one record in the National League, even with all these injuries. And definitely, if they would have lost, there definitely would have been no sympathy from other fans for sure, just because of who the Dodgers are. um, but yeah, no, in terms of highlights, man, for me, I went to a game this year. It was the last game of the first homestand. I got to see Shohei Ohtani's first home run in person as a fan. Like, that was actually really cool. His first home run as a Dodger, anyway. um, so that was really cool, especially because he ended up going up to 50 home runs, 50 steals, like that. He's the only person to ever do that in a single season. So to watch the first one of that was something really special. Another highlight, well, for me, was July 26th. I got to cover the Dodgers for the first time. I got to fill in for Juan Toribio, who was a great beat writer for the Dodgers at MLB.com. Got to fill in for him for a day, and that was actually the day that Clayton Kershaw came back from his injury. So that was awesome to see, just kind of being in that atmosphere, kind of seeing, what it takes to cover a team day to day like that. It was definitely a great experience for sure.
I remember when the first game of the playoffs, I think they played the Padres, and it was the first time I've seen baseball at a bar, and I remember the first home run was Shohei, right? Shohei Ohtani, who scored the first run out of the whole postseason, and for first time seeing that, I was like, oh damn, this is what's to expect for the rest of the postseason. But there's been ups and downs, but it's been tight. It's been tight to experience that for sure.
And that actually what you were saying right now reminded me, in terms of highlights, was this like last home series they had in the regular season. When they played San Diego, they won the division at home. They lost that first game of the series on like a triple play. I don't know if you remember that. Like
Hmm.
they had the bases loaded with no outs in the top of in the bottom of the ninth, and they hit line drive to Manny Machado and they do like a triple play. Dodgers come back and they like absolutely kill them the next game, and then
Mm.
they win the game after that to seal the division. I think that there's been the whole debate about whether getting that week of rest hurts or helps the team. I think in this case, with how injured the Dodgers have been, it definitely probably helped them, especially Freddie Freeman's injured with the ankle that gives him time to rest. Like it was definitely a huge moment for sure.
Hey man, let's speak about their opponents, the Yankees, because I feel like the Yankees also have a similar story where they're like kind of been, they're also like a big franchise team. They're as big as the Dodgers. But what can you say about the Yankees? Have they also had this great run this season? Have they been good as the Dodgers?
Oh yeah, the Yankees have been amazing. As I'm covering teams now, I try to be unbiased, but I grew up also really liking like the early 2000s Red Sox team, so I never really had any love for the Yankees in my heart. But the Yankees are have been really really good this season. They have probably the best young player in the game in Juan Soto. He's like the definition of like a five-tool player. Like he can play in the outfield. He's fast. He has power. He can hit for contact. He is like, if it wasn't for Shohei Ohtani and Aaron Judge, he would be the best player in the game, like bar none.
Mm.
So trading for him at the offseason for them, that also set the bar high for them, and they've kind of met that challenge. They also have, former Dodger Alex Verdugo. He's had a good run for them. They acquired Jazz Chisholm at the trade deadline from Miami. He's an exciting player. He was having a down year, but he turned it around once he put on the Yankee uniform. They just have power all around. Like they have Soto, they have Giancarlo Stanton, they have Aaron Judge. It's gonna be a good matchup.
It's Dodgers, Yankees, two historic franchises, two historic teams. But why is this specifically? Why is this upcoming World Series so historic for the moment?
Yeah, so this goes back a long, long time. Like back to the Brooklyn Dodger days. Like these teams were in the same city, so they grew up as crosstown rivals pretty much, and they played each other in the World Series 12 times. I think like they played in 1941, 1943, 1947, 1949, 1953, and all those times, those are five times. The Dodgers lost every single one of those. And they played again in 1955, and that's when the Dodgers finally won their first World Series as the Brooklyn Dodgers, the only World Series they won in Brooklyn. I don't want to say bad blood, but like there's definitely history between these two teams, and it's also the first time they're facing each other in 43 years, ever since 1981. Fernando Valenzuela, rest in peace. So it's been a dormant rivalry. I think it's what MLB needs right now in terms of people talk about baseball kind of losing viewership, kind of people call baseball like a dying sport, compared to like football and basketball and like everything else that's on the come up. Having these two teams, the two biggest cities, the two biggest markets, the two best teams, the two best players really in Otani and Judge, it's exactly what baseball needs at the time, and I think we're in for a treat for sure.
Hey man, there's one name that you mentioned right now in this response, and that's Fernando Valenzuela. So on October 22nd, on Tuesday, it was announced that Fernando Valenzuela had passed away. And I also saw that you recently published a piece on your Medium on the impact on the different generational impacts of Fernando Valenzuela. But why was he so important to not only the Dodgers but to the city of LA?
You definitely can't tell the history of LA baseball without Fernando Valenzuela. Yeah, people like to throw around the phrase like he changed the game, stuff like that. But in the case of Fernando Valenzuela, he actually did. Like his screwball was literally unhittable for years until his arm gave out. And not even that, but off the field as well. There was an author, I believe his name was Gene Aguilera. He spoke to the LA Times a few years ago, during like the 40th anniversary of Fernando Mania. He mentioned that, back then, during that height of Fernando Mania, that it felt like an East LA backyard party every single time he pitched. Like I look at him, and he was like, oh, like he could literally be one of my uncles. I'm pretty sure it was that way for a lot of like Latinos in LA. We felt represented for the first time, especially digging into the history of the Dodgers and the Latino communities that were displaced to make room for Dodger Stadium. A lot of them didn't feel welcome until Fernando came in, and you see him. He's standing on the mound. He's not just like one of the best pitchers in the world, but he's also what like one of us.
Yeah, and in the piece you also mentioned this interaction you had with your grandmother about the passing. Could you tell us a little bit more about what that interaction was?
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, I was sitting in the living room last night. We were watching. I was watching the Laker game actually. So it was me, my mom, my grandma. I get the notification on my phone from the Dodgers that says that Fernando Valenzuela passed away. So I read it out loud, and my grandma kind of like does like a double take. They give you that face, you know, that face where it's like wait, what'd you say? Like you don't believe it. Kind of just like stunned and shocked. When I said it again, like Fernando Valenzuela died, we kind of just like all three of us just kind of sat there like dead silent for like a few seconds. Like it was like surreal. Like it felt like I just told him like we lost like a family friend or something. It hit like that for sure.
That's the impact of sports, right? It's generational impact, cultural references that we have with our families and with the city, right? With the city of Los Angeles.
And to build off of that, it's also like it's crazy because like I wasn't born for like many many years after Fernando Mania. Like I never got to see him pitch like live. He was like long retired by the time I was born. But he still grew up like you grow up knowing who he is. You grow up kind of idolizing him because that's what our parents did. That's what our grandparents did, and like they tell you all these stories about him. You grow up seeing his face everywhere, like on every mural that you can see. Especially, I know there's. I grew up in Highland Park, so there's a sports store called the Fourth Quarter Shop. They have it's literally on the mural. It's him and Kobe, and also like it's just little things too. Like you know, you go to a Dodge game. How many people seeing do you see wearing Fernando Valenzuela jerseys?
Hey, thank y'all for sharing that. The last question I have for you is, hey man, the today's the first game. Today's the first day that the Dodgers played the Yankees, and already from what I'm hearing online, it's already the traffic's gonna be wild today. I don't know if you've seen it, but there's like four different events happening around the city. Five.
I
Uh,
did see that.
yeah, so the traffic is gonna be wild for sure. But what are you expecting? What are you expecting from this World Series matchup? What is it? What is it gonna look like for you?
Besides traffic,
He's yeah.
first of all, if you're going to the game, stay off the 110, stay off the five for sure.
Facts.
Uh, but in terms of yeah, what we're seeing, I think I touched on it earlier. You know, I'm really hyped to see Otani versus Judge, Otani versus Soto. Like, it's the best World Series matchup we've had in a long time. Like, I would say probably since 2017. It's been since I've been this hyped for a World Series matchup. It's been a long time coming for sure. I'm very excited to see.
For sure. Hey, man. Well, there y'all have it. Andres Soto, a freelance writer who's written for LA Times, ESPN, produced for ESPN and MLB.com. Thanks so much for being on the show, Andres. Appreciate you.
Yeah, man, no problem. Glad to be here.